Today, I'm going to give a quick summary. These are big films, but quick enough summary as I can of all the 3 films in the Hobbit trilogy. I'm then going to give an overview of what I think and the exact points I think it falls a little bit shorter than The Lord of the Rings and kind of the reasons why it just didn't do as good or wasn't as successful as it could have been. Anyway, this is going to be quite a long video, so buckle in and let's go. The Hobbit, An Unexpected Journey, the first movie of the trilogy. The movie starts with old Bilbo writing a book, and then tells us about the downfall of the Lonely Mountain and the Arkenstone and how the elves did not help the dwarves when Smaug attacked. We're then introduced to young Bilbo, and then we have the arrival of Gandalf, and then followed by the dwarves coming into Bilbo's house, which involves some of my favourite songs just ever. They offer him a chance of 1/13 of the share of the company if he decides to go along with their journey to reclaim their homeland at the Lonely Mountain, Erebor. Bilbo at first rejects them, but then later accepts, and later on we are then shown why Thorin is the leader and why he is the young prince that he is. At the Battle of Moria, where all hope was lost, Thorin managed to defeat the leader, Azog, who is still alive, we see. He manages to defeat Azog at that old battle, and this rallies all the dwarves behind him, and they manage to win that battle. And this is where we see, like I said before, Azog is still alive, watching and tracking them. The company then get into a tussle with some trolls, which Gandalf then swiftly disposes of using Daybreak, which turns them all into stone. They then find, in the trolls' cave, I guess, a stash of 2 god weapons and the famous sword Sting, which Bilbo uses. The 2 god weapons are Glamdring and Orcrist. These are old Gondolin elven weapons supposedly used by elven kings. So they just find that in a goddamn troll stash. Radagast then runs into the company and he warns Gandalf about the dangers in Mirkwood and the Necromancer. Radagast then helps them to distract some orcs as they manage to flee through a secret passage down to Rivendell. This is where Elrond, Agent Smith, helps Thorin to decipher some of the old codes in the map that he has, letting them know where the secret entrance is to get into the mountain. Whilst this is revealed, Gandalf is having a meeting with Saruman, Galadriel and Elrond, warning them over the dangers that Radagast warned him of. The company then secretly leave Rivendell and end up in a cave, and they get captured by goblins and are sent down to Goblin Town. Bilbo is separated from them as he is sent down into Gollum's cave, and the dwarves have a talk with the Goblin King. Gandalf then manages to rally the dwarves as they manage to successfully escape, as Bilbo does the same as he finds the One Ring and uses his wit against Gollum. The company then find themselves being ambushed by a group of orcs led by Azog. Thorin is obviously scared as shit. Azog and Thorin then have their final 1v1 in which Bilbo then saves Thorin. Then the eagles come in and no-diff absolutely every warg, wolf and wanker that was there. And the movie ends with them looking upon the Lonely Mountain. The Hobbit, The Desolation of Smaug, the second movie in the trilogy. We first get a flashback of Gandalf and Thorin meeting in Bree, talking and discussing about this plan to retake Erebor. Cut to current day where the company managed to meet Bjorn, a skin changer who is a terrifying big old bear, and after just chasing the company into his own house, he then helps take them to the front of the forest. This is where Gandalf has a vision and then must leave the company to explore the forest themselves. The company then gets lost in the forest and they are then attacked by spiders, which they are then saved by elves led by Legolas and Tauriel. The elves then hold captive all members apart from Bilbo, who sneaks in behind them. The company are then held inside the woodland realm as Thranduil tries to convince Thorin to give him the white gems which are inside Erebor. Thorin then basically tells him to go fuck off because he didn't help them when Smaug attacked the Lonely Mountain. We then cut to Azog and the Necromancer talking about building the armies and tracking down the dwarves. At the same time as this, Gandalf has gone to the crypts of the Nazgul, which have all been opened, confirming his suspicions that the Necromancer may be Sauron. The love triangle between Fili, Legolas and Tauriel is crafted at this point in the story, and Yeah. Bilbo then manages to save the company by using barrels going out of the river. As the company is travelling down the river, they are attacked by orcs, and Keely is mortally wounded with a poisoned arrow. After they successfully escape, they then meet Bard, who agrees to take them through Lake Town and smuggle them, because it is their only way to get to the mountain. The leader of Lake Town, known as the Master, finds out that the dwarves have infiltrated his town, and what their reason for being there is, and he eventually decides to help them to satisfy his own greed. And 3 of the dwarves, including Keely, are left behind. The dwarves are successful in finding the hidden passage, and at the same time Bard is arrested in Lake Town, and the remaining dwarves are attacked by Bolg and a squad of other orcs. Tauriel and Legolas manage to help the dwarves, and Tauriel manages to use some special herb to heal Keely. Whilst Bard is being arrested, Bard's son manages to hide a black arrow, the only arrow basically which can damage Smaug. Whilst all this is happening, Gandalf has gone to Dol Guldur to basically say it's on site with Sauron, and he manages to find an entire orc army led by Azog, and he also manages to find out that it is Sauron there, and Gandalf gets captured. The dwarves manage to successfully open the hidden gate, and because Bilbo is the appointed thief, he has to go in first and try and find the Arkenstone undetected by Smaug. Smaug is unfortunately awakened, however, and he's 20 times bigger than he is in the books, and he's incredible and voiced by Benedict Cumberbatch. Bilbo then uses Talk No Jitsu and just riddles to mindfuck him, and he successfully manages to escape with the Arkenstone. There's a big long chase sequence and sort of fight sequence, but it ends with Smaug being covered in gold. However, it completely and utterly fails, and Smaug says, "Alright, I blame the Lakemen for letting you guys here. They're about to get it." This ends the second movie. I can't lie, this one is long, so buckle in. The Hobbit, The Battle of the Five Armies. We start straight from the second film, and Smaug is dunking on the people of Lake Town. People are trying to run, the Master seemingly dies, and Bard, somehow using his son as a bow, kills Smaug with the black arrow. The dwarves watching atop Ravenhill rejoice. However, Thorin could not give 2 shits and orders everyone to go looking for the Arkenstone as he turns crazy from the gold. Bard, as the new leader of the surviving Lake Town people, then heads towards Erebor for help. However, Azog, along with his entire army, also heads there for battle. Upon the failure from Bolg in Lake Town, Azog orders his son to go to Gundabad and get another army, which Legolas and Tauriel follow him for. Cut to Gandalf being bodied by an orc before being saved by Galadriel. Radagast then takes Gandalf away and saves him, whilst Galadriel, Elrond and Saruman are left to face the 9 Nazgul. As they start to gain the upper hand, Sauron appears. However, Galadriel bodies him and sends him all the way to the east. Elrond says the west should be warned of his return, and Saruman says he will deal with Sauron himself. Thorin is now completely off his tits on greed and looking for the Arkenstone, only showing a little bit of humanity when Bilbo shows him an acorn that he has in his pocket. That is until the refugees of Lake Town come and ask for help. The people of Lake Town take refuge in the old city of Dale outside Erebor, as Erebor covers up its entrance with rubble. The Woodland army, led by Thranduil, turn up in Dale and help the people of Lake Town. Bard tries negotiating with Thorin before Thranduil starts attacking Erebor, but Thorin goes back on his word and Bard is not very happy. The dwarves then ready for war as Thorin gives Bilbo a mithril shirt, and he whispers to him saying he thinks one of them has stolen the Arkenstone and betrayed him. Gandalf then arrives to Dale, warning Thranduil and the preparing Lakemen about the army of orcs which is heading their way. There is then a short argument, but Thranduil does not believe him. We then see Legolas and Tauriel look upon the Gundabad army and they go to warn the rest of them. We then see Bilbo escape at night to give the Arkenstone to the leaders of Dale to see if he can stop the incoming conflict and use it as leverage against Thorin. As the leverage actually starts to work, Dain Ironfoot II, Thorin's cousin, decides to come through with an army of dwarves ready to defend his cousin. Gandalf says the conflict that's about to ensue between the elves and the dwarves should not happen, as they should focus on the orcs which are coming, and Dain says, "Fuck that, I'm going to kill these pointy-eared dickheads." There's then a short battle between the dwarves and elves, and depending on which version you watch, the dwarves absolutely knackered half the elven army with their incredible twirly-whirlies, as Billy Connolly says, or the rams just ram into the first line of elves. Either way, giant earthworms turn up, and they fuck off, and then the entire legions of orcs are shown to have been travelling underground in their legions and legions. So the fighting armies very quickly turn their attention to that. The dwarves heading there immediately first. Thranduil's a little tentative, but the elves then join them in fighting the orcs. Azog, now standing atop Ravenhill controlling all of his armies, sends a giant force over to Dale, forcing Bard and all the Lakemen who have prepared against Thorin to retreat back to Dale and defend. Dale is almost immediately breached and the Lakemen are forced to try and take it back. There are now heavy losses on all the good guys' sides, and Dwalin pleads with Thorin to go and help his cousin out, but he refuses. Thorin then has some mad crazy hallucinations like he is on something, and he manages to snap back to sanity. Thorin then rallies the company back together to prepare to go out. As Azog is about to give the final attack command, Thorin uses a massive giant golden fuck off bell to break through the rubble and charge through and break through the orc ranks along with Dane's army. And as this happens, Bard manages to lead an offensive in Dale. At this point, Thorin and company try and split off to find and go up towards Azog. Bilbo, upon seeing them go towards Azog, decides to sneak up alongside them. As this is happening, Thranduil looks around, sees all the losses and all the elven lives which have been taken, and he decides to retreat. Tauriel tries stopping him and basically calls him a bitch. Orlando saves her, and Thranduil realises he's a bad dad. Basically all that is. When company make it to Ravenhill, Azog almost immediately kills Fili as they try going into the tower, and this sparks absolute mayhem. This causes a fight between Fili, Tauriel, Legolas and Bolg, and then Thorin, orcs, well random orcs, and then Azog. During these fights, Bolg kills Keely and then incapacitates Tauriel, and Legolas manages to save them and then kill Bolg. Thorin and Azog then have their final battle upon the ice, which Thorin smartly manages to almost drown Azog, but it doesn't work, and then they both end up killing each other. This is when the Eagles finally decide to turn up, along with Bjorn and Radagast, and Bjorn just fucks everyone, and the Eagles basically nuke the entire battlefield, basically winning the entire war. And with the battle won and finally over, Thorin apologises to Bilbo on his deathbed about everything he did and being infused with dragon sickness. And Thranduil tells Legolas to go and find Aragorn. After the funerals of Fili, Keely and Thorin, who is buried with the Arkenstone, Dane Ironfoot is named the king under the mountain. Bilbo then says his goodbyes to all the surviving dwarves, and upon returning home from his adventure, he finds all his belongings are being auctioned off because all the rest of the hobbits believed he was dead. The trilogy ends with him looking at his ring, and then it ends with the actual start of The Lord of the Rings. Yeah, I'm just going to try rattle off some of the issues that I think these films have over Lord of the Rings. So first off is just the vibe. As you'll see, there's actually a really big colour difference between The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, and also the different versions of The Hobbit. Like the actual theatrical release is very different to like the director's cut and stuff. Like is it a lot greener or a lot more yellow, and it's just weird. It's kind of edited with that sort of vibe really weirdly, and it just gives a different sense compared to Lord of the Rings where it's a lot rawer, and yeah, there's just a completely older sort of medieval vibe that you get from Lord of the Rings, which is kind of far more fantastical in The Hobbit, which I think doesn't do it as much justice, if you kind of get what I mean. And now I'm going to speak on the CGI. Overall, right, the CGI is perfect. Weta can do no wrong in this aspect. They are literally the greatest CGI makers fucking ever. There's a reason Peter Jackson sold it for $1 billion, and he's now a billionaire because of it, because it's incredible. Massive, the software that they use to create the massive large-scale battles, absolutely incredible and is still here. But there is more use of it here, and you can see that, and especially, I know it's not CGI, but I'm lumping it in here anyway, the use of blue and green screens. It is, you can see it's used far more here, and I'm 100% sure that is nothing to do with Peter Jackson. That was kind of what he was given with the time constraints he was given. I don't necessarily know. I could have searched this, but not gonna lie, I can't be asked. I know there was a lot more pressure on Peter Jackson for these films to get them in a certain time frame and create a whole product in a certain time, because he had to do it for like a production company or whoever the fuck, which he just didn't have for Lord of the Rings, which I think 100% hindered what he did with these films. If he wasn't under those constraints, not gonna lie, I don't know what exactly those were. I know they were probably time constraints, and he didn't have those in Lord of the Rings, and that's why there's definitely a missing segment of practicality, which he only had in Lord of the Rings. And it's like those sad stories you hear of Ian McKellen crying on set because he wasn't actually acting with anyone there, and that's fucking horrendous. It's so bad, especially for like a theatre actor who's always used to people there. And even compared to the Lord of the Rings, you just fucking sat in a green box or a blue box and you're just talking to people. And so yeah, it's just sad. It's sad. And I think that just 100% shows through the camera. You can see that, like, the sets and things still absolutely incredible. Like the mound of gold that Bilbo's on, like, that was all practical. Some of the shot designs, like inside Bilbo's house with Ian McKellen and Bilbo, like, these are incredible and really, really smart reasons why Peter Jackson's my favourite director. Yeah, just something was lost with overall practicality and just people interacting and things in these movies. And I know I already mentioned it, but the time constraints and the behind the scenes sort of fiascos and constraints which Peter Jackson had with these films. So yeah, just fucking all that shit in general. It was just a boundary that Peter Jackson had to work to. So because I don't know the ins and outs, I just know that there were things holding him back which were not holding him back for Lord of the Rings. So that's definitely a fucking downside. Now, story-wise, I think everyone knows that the Tariel Feely storyline was not the fucking best thing ever. Weren't in the books. Tariel ain't a real character. Wasn't necessary. It was just another layer that they added, which wasn't necessary. It's not like it's even like that bad. It's just fucking not necessary. You didn't need it. We're there for the fantastical, cool nature of it. It's because it's a written in sort of love. Whereas Aragorn and his elven love, whatever the fuck her name is, I can't remember, I apologise, but that was already foretold, forewritten in the lore, and with all these fans of the actual books and things, it just definitely didn't go down well, that there's a sort of forced upon love story between dwarf and elf. But apart from that, still some of the most high grossing films, still an incredible trilogy. For a long time I would have rated them higher than Lord of the Rings, but I have now grown a brain. So yeah, but these are still my favorite, one of my favorite trilogies of all time. Yeah, it's just a little bit less given some of the reasons I gave. Now, it's probably not all the reasons. There's definitely other reasons as well. Some people just might not like the casting of certain people, maybe even not liking Martin Freeman, but I thought every performance in the film was great. And the detail, you just cannot take that away from the people that work on these films. The detail they put into shit, like Thranduil with the berries in his crown and stuff. Like, I know that's all written in the lore, and it's a seasonal thing which J.R.R. Tolkien actually writ. But the fact that they actually wanted to and just actively did that was a really cool detail and stuff, which, yeah, it's like you cannot say they did not dedicate themselves on all these films. This is both kind of a critique and a review, but I'm giving my thoughts on it anyway because bing bang boom. I'm giving it a 10 out of 10. I don't care, because Lord of the Rings is a fucking 11 out of 10. Even though there are faults, the movies, for what they are still some of the best ever, I believe. The voice acting and the story and stuff, it's like you can't go wrong with what you were given and what Peter Jackson can do. It's like the man can do no wrong, literally, actually can't. Like, you can't take away from the dedication and the time and the innovations that they made to create these movies. So, yeah. Let me know what you thought. Let me know any other reasons you thought these films didn't do well or you didn't like about these films. But yeah, thank you for watching. Like and subscribe, and bye.